right, so we're going to call this meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I guess I get that over today. So. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so closed session. We have an announcement to read out from closed session. The board voted to appoint Dr. Susan Wilds to the position of Assistant Superintendent Educational Services. Dr. Wilds will be assuming the position currently previously held by Dr. Cho, who recently decided to take a position in LAUSD. Dr. Wilds will begin transitioning to this new position immediately starting tomorrow. Dr. Wilds is currently the Executive Director of Educational Services. Prior, she served as the principal of Alta Vista Elementary School for 8 years upon her arrival to RBUSD. Dr. Wilds earned her undergraduate degree in psychology and elementary education from the College of William & Mary, her master's degree in educational leadership from Georgia State University, and recently completed a doctoral degree in educational leadership from UCLA. We wish Dr. Wilds continued success in her new role in educational services. Congratulations. Additionally, in closed session, we discussed personnel and gave direction to staff. The approval of the agenda for today was approved by Brad Waller, seconded by David Whitkin. And need a motion and a second to approve the minutes for October 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Student advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hearing 5-0. Thank you. All right. First reports to the board. Data Parent Survey Poll and LA County Department of Health. Dr. Susan Wilds.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Board President Serkin, members of the board, Dr. Keller, and Cabinet. My name is Susan Wilds, and I'm here tonight to give you all an update on our Fall 2020 RBUSD Distance Learning Family Survey. And I want to be very clear, these are the results to date. We aren't going to close the survey until Friday, so we encourage everyone who hasn't had a chance, please go on and submit your feedback to us. So to date, we have 4,402 responses, and you can see we are fairly even across all of our school sites. The majority of our responses are families who are currently enrolled in the Option 1 hybrid learning. However, we do have a good number of our respondents from Option 2 as well, so it was really good to be able to disaggregate those two. With responses at 4,402, we have been monitoring this very closely. Approximately every 100 responses we go back in, and we are rapidly approaching saturation with the survey. So this time, we wanted to get a little bit more demographic survey on our respondents. All grade levels were represented in the responses. Each grade level, particularly in first and second grade, really has some of the highest at 8%. Most other grade levels are sitting right around 6.5%. 11% of our respondents to the survey have students with an IEP, 5.5 have 504s, and then another 17% of our respondents indicated that their student is an English language learner, which is interesting, is a little bit of a flawed data, however, because we don't have 17% of our students as English language learners, but this represents kind of some of the families and some of the languages in the homes. So the first two questions of the survey were really looking at kind of just the overall impressions of distance learning. So you can see we are 39.4% are responding that this is just about what they expected. And these two questions were really aimed at allowing us to do some comparison from the spring. And so we've got 25% better than expected, 15% much better than expected. So we are slightly, this kind of almost nice bell curve is slightly skewed, so this is skewed in a positive direction.
But,
Sure.
how do we know what people's expectations were to begin with?
We had well, that's a great question. But I have a very long list of comments and what people's experiences were. And so we really got a really good feel for some of the the trends, what people were saying, things like, and you're going to see in some of these questions, we were able to tease out a little bit more, things like scheduling, things like live video conferencing. So we knew from the spring, those were areas of concern for parents, so we were able to kind of dig through those a little bit deeper this time. We also wanted to know that wanted to recognize that distance learning right now is very difficult on our families and our parents. I will tell you right now, it's difficult at the Wilds household. So we wanted to see how is it going for our families. And again, we've got this really kind of nice bell curve, but we do have 43% are saying it's about what is expected. We've got a little bit heavier in the positive, but we do have some families who definitely are struggling. So the first construct we were looking at was instructional minutes. We wanted to make sure we were aligned with what our teachers were planning and what we were hoping our students were engaging in. And then we also wanted to look at kind of the live contact. This was an area of concern from the spring. We wanted to compare it from now. How many hours a day is your child learning? And this is overall K-12. We have been able to disaggregate it down by K-2, 3, 5, middle school and high school. Obviously, the more the 6, 7, and 8 hours are really occurring more at the high school. And my gut would be these are our kids, particularly in our honors and our AP coursework. How often does your child participate in video conferencing? And you can see 64% of our respondents are indicating their children are live multiple times a day with their families, with their teachers. I would tell you, from the Wilds, had to answer this, we would be in the not sure category. Yeah, it's a lot of instruction. So the next construct was really students' access to their learning and really perceptions of effectiveness. Obviously, we can't test effectiveness in over this remote situation, but we wanted to get from our families their feelings of what are they seeing as being effective with their child. So the assigned work has been clearly explained and easy to follow. You can see the blue, 58% agreeing for most content areas, 22% agree for almost all content areas. So this is telling us that we're doing a really nice job making sure our students understand what we're asking of them and understanding what the learning. They're able to access it. What method of instruction has been effective? And this is actually a complete duplicate question from the spring and almost with identical results. Live classes with 15, small group, tutorials, intervention, just that contact, individual contact with teachers are really important, and our families are recognizing that. So overall, 15, in the area of feedback and communication, we had several questions that kind of went after these constructs. 53% of respondents felt that their child is receiving feedback. Most interesting to me was the 26% that were unsure. That's a fairly large number for me, so that makes me start thinking about how can we help our families really see the feedback that their kids are receiving and really kind of understand where the feedback is occurring, but how do we make sure our parents are aware of it? 82.3% of respondents feel they receive clear communication from the school, which is really great to hear, and 87% of respondents feel comfortable reaching out to their child's teacher and or school for questions or support. And this final question is one that makes us feel really the most proud, is that this idea of establishing connections. And so that this idea that we're in this together, we're going to have to collaborate, and people feel comfortable reaching out to us.
Dr.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Please do.
I'm also sorry to bring back or speak from the angle of my own experience with
Sure.
my kids, because
Yeah.
I know it's...
That's what you know.
Yeah. However, when I go into my kids' Google Classroom
Mm-hmm.
or Power School, I have yet this school year to see any feedback on anything.
Right.
Not a corrected math assignment, not comments on a written, language arts assignment. Are there such pieces of feedback being given?
There is. Yes,
Okay,
and there is, and what we're
why
doing
not?
right now is, let me give you a great example. Looking at a math assessment that a student has done, submitted to Google Classroom, is very difficult to provide direct feedback. Historically, the student would get the math paper, hand it to Dr. Alpern,
Sure.
she would grade it, write her notes. Those are some things that we're working out right now and providing feedback. There are really cool, Karen Sato, one of our TOSAs, was down at Toledo yesterday or the day before, and looking at how some of the upper grade teachers are trying to figure out workarounds to provide students that direct feedback on the assessment and then get it back to them. So that's some more of the professional development and learning that we're having to deliver to the teachers to how to do that. A lot of the feedback is occurring live, in live sessions, but that's always good feedback for us to have. What other ways can we provide feedback? Seesaw is a learning management tool for our primary. We just within the last 2 days, Seesaw now delivers to administrators and myself. I got 8 digests of all the Seesaw. I can go in and I can see Burrell Elementary first grade teacher, and I can see everything she's posted in Seesaw, and I can see what the assignments were, and I can see the feedback she's giving. So we're increasing the tools for us as administrators to go in and see that that's happening, and then support our teachers to do that.
So are you saying that Google Classroom and PowerSchool, like the technology just is not there to actually, provide comments on, a book report and post it?
In the old-fashioned way, the way we historically, where you would do it on a page, you can. We just have to learn and teach teachers the tricks to go in and do that. Yeah, it's just a little bit, it's just a few extra steps, but we can do it.
Because that would be great as a parent to be able
To see
see
it.
that.
Yeah. One of the things I saw at a teacher at Toledo, she took the math. She was able to utilize a tablet, utilize the Google app in the tablet using just a $20 digital pen that she bought off of Amazon, was able to score the test, return it to the student digitally, and now the student actually had 2 math assessments in their folder, the one they turned in and then the one the teacher turned back to them so that they can see the comparison, which is really cool. We just need to figure out a way now to teach that to more teachers to do.
Yep, thank you.
It's trial and error. Increased structure. This was actually a question directly from off of the spring. My child's schedule during distance learning has been working for his or her learning needs. You can see 58.3% are saying it is just right. This is almost a perfect bell curve. The next area is really looking at connectedness. How well is your child coping socially and emotionally during distance learning? Again, we've got 33% moderately well, 25 quite well, 18 slightly well, and I put 2 red asterisks up here because this is an area that came out very strongly in some of the open-ended responses. When I started coding a lot of the open-ended, the social, emotional, connecting, having play dates, how do I get my child talking with other kids, how do we get them together within the COVID environment, came up so much. And so we really started this because this is really an area we want to go after next. How much do you feel like a part of your school community? This was a question that came out of the reopening think tank. One particular subgroup felt very, very strongly that during distance learning, what can we do? How can we make sure our families feel that they are still part of RBUSD? We want to make sure that feeling of being connected and being connected to not only your individual school community, but the district as a whole. And this one came out a little bit skewed in an area where we want to come on work on. So these are really kind of 2 areas. This area of connectedness is where we need to go next. So student needs. What does your child need the most help at the moment? Maintaining engagement. I think all of us who sit on Zooms, who sit on WebExes, maintaining engagement is incredibly difficult. And really it's a matter of not only how do we teach our kids to maintain engagement, but really what I'm seeing from our teachers is just they're constantly trying to mix it up and keep things fresh. But that's one of I think we probably all could agree if we watch our children, maintaining their engagement, keeping the cell phones away and staying focused is very, very challenging. 43% of our respondents said that their student needs help, social and emotional support. And a lot more information came out in some of the open-ended. People gave a lot more information about that. Completing and submitting expected amount of work was 29%. Successfully completing assignments dropped down to 27%. Interestingly, it was the lowest using technology platforms. It was only 10% of our respondents. And then there was an area where people could put other. And there were approximately over 14,000 other responses, and we read every single one. So if people say they didn't read it, not true. I read them, read every one. And this is where we really got to be able to dig down a little bit more into what does that mean for a family in terms of social, emotional support. 19% of our respondents indicated not sure. Parent needs. where do you need the most help in supporting your child in distance learning? Again, with the motivating, this idea of engagement, monitoring student progress. I think, David, this is actually exactly what you spoke to. This idea of how do we make sure parents are very up to date with what their children are doing, around the feedback, how they're progressing, and supporting those social emotional needs, 37.9%. These are high percentages that we want to kind of go after. And then similarly, promoting socialization, 41.55%. And you'll notice some of the responses don't have the full, these are questions parents could opt to skip. So the last area really we looked at comfort level. This was really a two-part survey. We wanted to get a feeling overall as how distance learning was working. And then the area of comfort. If and when schools are safely able to reopen, describe your family's comfort level with returning to school campuses for in-person learning. 75% indicated that they are comfortable. When we disaggregated this out and just looked at hybrid option 1 families, the number is almost exactly the same. It was like 75.3%. Very, very similar. So one of the things I wanted to, again, 14,000 open-ended responses, is this is what I mean when I say that we're getting towards saturation. These are the top number of comments that when people say are working well, and I'm going to talk in a minute about the things that people are still seeing challenges with. And the word teacher was in every single response almost. People are so proud of their teachers. The connections they're making, the one-on-ones. There was a very long response talking about how this parent was struggling. She reached out to the teacher saying, my child just can't get on. So the teacher's meeting individually with the student every day for 15 minutes, just coach him through getting ready for the next day. They recognize the hard work of our teachers and they're very appreciative. Teachers' availability, teachers' care, the increased use of different online platforms to keep our kids engaged, increased teacher support, there it is again, the interventions, the tutorials, I think they recognize all the different ways our teachers are trying to reach our students, flexibility and independent learning. A lot of our families really see some of this, their child's ability to be able to work at their own kind of level and work at their own pace. The Child Development Center, people are very appreciative of the Child Development Center. Student expectations and grading, it's particularly at the secondary level that those are back, and the structured daily schedule. The predictability of the day has really, is something that people are telling us is working. Now, what are challenges? Ultimately, no matter how great people's responses were, they usually ended with, but it's not the same as in person, which we all know. And this idea of needing more connections. We need more connections with friends. We need more socialization. Trying to support our students as working parents. Some students need even more support than we're giving them. And this idea of maintaining engagement is very, very challenging. So what are our 3 big takeaways from the data? Parent education around social and emotional support and needs. And the Educational Services Department has already come together to start thinking about and brainstorming. We're going to be bringing our counselors in to do some more kind of thinking. How do we support our parents in that? Strategies to continue increased engagement, keeping it really fresh and keeping it's really difficult for our kids if every day is looking the same, looking on the computer. So how do we keep it new? And then continuing to support effective interventions and effective tutorials in this kind of remote. And then we're going to watch. We watch and wait for new guidance from the LA County Health Department. So thank you all for letting me share. I will, as soon as this closes on Friday, we will update all the numbers for you.
Okay, I've got
Questions?
comment really more than a question.
Yes.
Surveys are wonderful because it knows that we have a snapshot. We know what's
Yeah.
happening. So I would like, or I'd hope to see that we have at least the same questions asked regularly so that we can see the trend, because now that we have this, you've got ideas on what you're going to work on next.
Yeah.
And I would hope that a month from now we say, well, the next survey, we've got a trend line, this is working, or this didn't work, so we're changing what we're doing. So do
Absolutely.
we have that plan?
Especially these areas of the biggest areas of concern. We agree with you.
I have a question. Can you
Sure.
remind me how many students we have right now? It's 9,000 and something?
Just under 10,000.
Just under 10,000. So I was just trying to think the percentage of parents that have given feedback yet.
How many families?
Oh, remember, that's families, not
Well, we asked them for repeated. So we did ask families to repeat because we felt strongly that the experience of a sixth grader would be very different than the experiences of a first grader. Yeah.
For both kids. So this one is clear. We'll know who, how much of a percentage we have. I was looking for overall response rate so far, and I hope parents really do take this opportunity to have feedback. You mentioned there were some questions that were exactly the same as the spring. I'd love to see, well, I know the themes I remember of the spring, but if we could be reminded of what the feedback was in the spring, because I think almost to a T, the things that are working well were the things that we needed, that were given as responses as needing improvement in the spring. And I think it's important to acknowledge that amazing work that was done to get to we were responsive to parents' needs.
Absolutely. We listened, we read, we heard, and we made adjustments.
And out of the 14,000, you said that were there, it was really came down to just those trends?
Just those trends over and over and over again. Some a little bit more strongly than others, and this was also a question, what is working? This was a question that parents could skip. So they did not have to, this was not a forced response.
Straight to what they needed help with.
Right.
Understandable.
And I wanted to reinforce what Brad Waller said about keeping the questioning consistent. I think there is tremendous value in seeing the trends on this, especially the longer it runs. Is there any comparison you're able to do with other districts?
That's a great question. So there are several districts who then take their presentations similarly and then post them. And then a little bit of wheeling and dealing and friendship and trying to get some people's numbers. I think we can easily get some surrounding districts data too.
Okay. Yeah, if there's any findings of commonality or differences on that, maybe you can let us know.
Absolutely.
Do we have a plan of when we're doing another survey? I know we
Oh.
just did this one. I'm just saying.
She's still reeling for the 50,000
I'm still, it's still too soon. No, we don't at this point. It really, this is the work out of the reopening think tank. This was data that they needed to have. And so when we feel like we've made a big enough change and we need new data, that's when I would say would be time.
Were you able to kind of segment the responses by, let's say, grade?
I can filter by grade, I can filter by school, I can filter by, I did, anything that had personal identifying information on it, I did clean out. But we can look at, for example, it's really interesting to go in and see, what does the instructional time question, take that question, filter it by grade level, and I can say, I just want the K, or I just want 2 and 3. There's all kinds of ways we can manipulate it.
Was there any interesting learning that you did by doing that?
The main thing interesting was really just that the instructional minutes seem to be very dead on. When we look at what teachers are really hoping for in a K1 and 2, they're aiming for X number of minutes. That's fairly, they're fairly on target, averaging anywhere between 80. It gets a little bit more fluctuation, again, at the high school level. We've got from all over the place, high schoolers reporting that they have 3 hours of work to 13 hours of work.
How about the social emotional? Did you notice any differences? Were parents more concerned about SEL for high
Not
school
really,
versus-
no. In the free response, you get a little bit more of the K-5 really talk a lot more about kind of play dates, this idea of just getting out. The parents are struggling with how do we do a play date in COVID? How do I help? Because these are kids who don't have phones, they're not connecting versus TikTok. But at the high school, you still have those same areas. They tend to be more just, I want my kid back around their friends, I want them learning together, they want them back on campus.
Thank
For
you.
me, thank you.
Thanks for all those 14,000 comments read.
They're pretty fun.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be back. So just wanted to give you a little update from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. as I'm sure you're aware, as we began bringing back students, targeted students from our vulnerable populations, we were required to have a site visit by a representative from the Los Angeles Department of Public Health, and those visits began in late September, and we had our last visit on October 14th. And I'm here to just share sort of the intricacies of what we went through and the hard work of our staff and our site administrators to really prepare for a safe return for our staff and students. What was great about it was that all of our sites passed the reviews, and basically the health department endorsed our practices and procedures as being within the mandates that they had provided. They did not have any recommendations for our school sites. But to give you an idea, there are 5 components involved in the preparation for safety for our campuses. The first area is policies and practices, and under that includes having a compliance team and an exposure management plan, which I actually had the exposure management plan and work with every site and department administrator daily as we monitor these practices. The distancing, this includes the physical distancing. Some of the things that they really loved was the tape on the ground, the physical actual reminder, the visual reminder of the space for students, maintaining strict guidance to the cohorting for our vulnerable populations, which is the, no more than 12 students with the 2 supervising adults. And then including instructional assistants, but as that happens, you decrease the number of students in the room. So there was a lot that went into following those guidelines. The second is infection control measures. The Beach Cities Health District Screening app, that was actually something the health department was really intrigued in and really liked it as an example for larger organizations to utilize. I got a lot of really good feedback from them on the screening process we have for that. Isolation spaces for students or staff who are having symptoms before they are picked up, face coverings, cleaning and disinfecting measures, as well as our ventilation measures. And then the communication plan, all of the letters we've sent out to parents as we've slowly returned, our reopening plans, and various methods of which we have communicated with our community. And the last is just ensuring equitable access to services. So I wanted to share with you, this is actually the email that one of our sites received, so you can see the comments and what they actually go through, this checklist in each area, and just highlighting a lot of the things like we talked about. They noted the foot traffic signs and the labels on the ground that I know Annette and team have been working hard to get out there, that the temperature checks and the screening processes to get into and onto campuses. Some of the other things that they really liked, again, you can see the Beach Cities. They loved the QR code, that it was outside the offices, that you could get it before you walked in. The bathroom schedules, the custodian schedules, and you can see those and how often we're cleaning now that students are back. That was a key aspect that they also highlighted. But again, just also looking at all of our communications to date at this point. And so just wanted to give you some insight into what the hard work that's going on and how that has led to, I believe, the successful phased reopening of our campuses to our most vulnerable populations. I think a lot of the hard work has gone into following these practices and procedures, which I think has helped us be successful. Questions?
Perfect. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for all
A lot of work.
All right, next up, student board member report.
All right, hello everyone. So I came back with some information on our upcoming fundraisers that I presented briefly last time. So the first is the UCLA blood drive, and I brought a flyer here, which I can leave at the end for notice. And that is going to be on November 4th, 1 through 6 p.m. at the Crown Plaza. You can also go to www.ucedonor.com, go to blood drives, and enter CP in the zip code box. The prize is a free COVID-19 antibody test. And let me know if any of you plan on participating. We're additionally having a holiday tree sale. This is also the other flyer that I'll leave here for reference. And you can purchase multiple holiday decorations, and you can make these purchases either on the flyer or on the Redondo Union ASB web store. And more details are listed on the website and flyer as well. Any questions?
I'm signed up for the blood drive already.
Awesome.
I'll be
Thank
there
you
at
so much.
1:10 PM if anybody wants to sit next to me.
Awesome. Sounds
I
good.
got turned away the last
I
time,
know.
but I'll try again.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
See if I
you.
recognize Darren this time.
Yeah.
I don't
Dr.
need that.
Keller, I was waiting for
Yeah,
you.
but I'm going to be short because I'm going to spend a lot more time on the TK2 waiver process, but I just wanted to obviously thank Ms. Lily Choi for her 9 months of service to the Redondo Beach Unified School District. She worked as hard as anybody I've ever met and cared deeply about our kids and families. And I also want to welcome Dr. Susan Wild, who was just before us and showing what a great asset she is to this district. And she's obviously can continue in her capacity as the Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services. So welcome to her, and as we like to say here, let's go. I want to thank our teachers and our staff. The board and I are visiting school sites, appropriately distanced with our mask on, washing our hands periodically, and just seeing the magic of teaching and learning in this distance learning environment. And I just want to commend our teachers, and I mean that sincerely. I think I speak on behalf of the board as well and the team here. The administrators, CDC staff, CSEA, counselors, administrators, everybody, our 1,300 plus employees. This is difficult. It's difficult for the kids, difficult for the families, and difficult new work for all of us. And so I want to commend them and thank them. And so on behalf of the entire school district, thank you to our employees for all you do, and let's keep at it. Thanks.
All right. Moving on to the hearings section. We have one advance written request. I believe Ricardo's going to bring them up in a second. And then just for everyone's public knowledge, I spoke to, the board received a lot of correspondence in the last 5-6 days from the parent community, and in light of COVID, in light of the fact that our boardroom is not really equipped for multiple people to come in, I did request parents to write in their questions and comments as far as it goes to us directly instead of coming here presently. Didn't discourage them from coming, made clear to all of them they were welcome, but in light of it, just trying to avoid having a parade one way or the other with here, if we could accomplish it by written correspondence. So I will be reading that after our first individual coming in to speak. It's Jennifer. I think she's standing right outside the door. Could be. Ricardo, we're ready for. Come on in.
Thank you. And I can take this off?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, school board president, school board members, and Dr. Keller. My name is Jennifer Minnick, and I'm proud to be part of the Redondo Beach Unified School District as a parent, teacher, and alumni. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to thank you for your continued work and service toward our schools and community. My family and I recognize that these are unusual circumstances and that you have had the tough job of attempting to find stability for all of us while you navigate uncharted territory. So we are truly thankful and appreciate your hard work. I'm here today to encourage the board to apply for the waiver that would allow for our kindergarten through second grade students to return to school in person. I was recently made aware that the Redondo Beach Teachers Association was not in favor of supporting our district in applying for the waiver to the Los Angeles County of Public Health. Despite being a member of RBTA, I do not agree with this stance. Although I am here only to represent myself, I have spoken to teachers at the elementary and middle school level who are in favor of returning to in-person school. On that same note, I have not spoken to a single parent who says that they wouldn't send their child to school if it opened tomorrow. So why are you hesitant about applying for the waiver? These are the reasons I have been given from the RBTA and the district office. No more than 6 schools per week will be accepted. Given that we have 8 elementary schools, this would be considered inequitable. My question in response to this is, if we are approved for the 6 schools, can we apply for the remaining the following week? The next reason, prioritization for all slots will be given to schools with higher percentages of schools qualifying for free or reduced price meals. Last week, Manhattan Beach and Palos Verdes both applied for waivers, and I'm 100% certain that their number of Title I students is less than ours. The third reason was given to me by the president of the RBTA. TK through second grade teachers would feel on edge and unable to plan for the upcoming week because the application and timelines are completely out of the district's control. This is simply not true. I trust that the board would never spring an opening of our schools on parents or teachers. I understand that applying for the waiver could possibly be an arduous process, and we may not get approved. However, aren't we a district who is striving for greatness? I strongly feel that you need to do this for one reason and one reason only. It is the right thing to do for our children. During virtual teaching, my eyes have been opened to the students' home lives. I am literally in their bedrooms, kitchens, living rooms, sheds, garages, or elsewhere every single day, and I see a lot, and I hear a lot. And I really realize the magnitude of what is missing for some of these students by not being in school. School for a lot of these children, sitting in the same desk as the person next to them, eating the same food at lunchtime, and most importantly, having that same in-person interaction from their teachers gives them that level playing field, the moment of equality before they go home to their individual home lives. The bottom line is that there is no perfect solution to any problem. But like I tell my students, if you are willing to take a chance, try hard, and remain optimistic, life will give you opportunities. And if you take advantage of these opportunities, you'll be one step closer to a better day than the day before. I sincerely hope and pray you take that step for our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
only comment I will make, because we can't really, it's part of a discussion, is please take a look, watch later. We will be having a discussion specifically on this. So.
Okay, sorry, didn't know which one of
That's
you guys
fine.
was talking.
Yeah. You say, yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you
no
very
problem.
much. Thank you all for your
I'm sorry,
service.
could you repeat, like, because I want to, when we have our discussion.
Sure.
Can you repeat, like, the 3 questions you had?
Yeah.
I think they're very valid questions that we should.
Okay.
be discussing.
The first question was, if the waiver states that only 6 schools per week will be accepted, can we keep applying and have the remaining schools be accepted and then start everybody at once if all schools are accepted by the waiver eventually?
Yeah.
And then my other question, it's not really a question, but a statement, if the prioritization is given to lower income schools or schools that are underprivileged, does that make it impossible for our school, or is it just unlikely? There's a difference between unlikely and impossible. So I wanted to know the answer to that. And then my other question, the RBTA president made a statement in an email saying that teachers would feel on edge and unable to plan for the upcoming week, as if this went through, that it would be, let's go to school tomorrow, and we wouldn't have this time. I'm confident that you guys would give us plenty of time to plan. So I just wanted to clear that up, to make sure that I was correct in thinking that of you guys.
Yeah, I think I would just say, because we will have a lengthy discussion, a lot of what's your questions are actually, there are reasonable answers to it, but I think we'll put it
Okay.
in the discussion period. But things like being able to apply, it's watch the discussion. We'll make sure we answer all those questions.
I will. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your service. Thanks for your time.
No, we
Bye.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so I have 11 public comments submitted. Actually, I apologize, 12. So I will begin by reading them. We did consolidate some of them that were templated, and we can indicate accordingly. But we'll start with first one. Hello, board members. Now that the waiver process is open to us in LA County, I urge RBUSD to apply for the waiver to reopen our school. I'm a mother of 2 children in the dual immersion program at Washington School. My children have really struggled this past year with the distance learning. As you can imagine, it's very difficult for a kindergartner and first grader to sit in front of a computer for hours a day. Add to that the difficult situation that they are learning a foreign language via Zoom, and it has become torturous. It is nearly impossible to get them to focus on their work, the work the teacher is sharing. The situation is untenable, and both my children have fallen behind. They are both receiving intervention. This intervention is also virtual, so they continue to fall further and further behind. I know I'm not alone in the struggles. My children are both attending private programs to help facilitate their Zoom sessions. My first grader is in CDC at Washington, and my kindergartner is at the Savoir-Faire Language Institute. These programs cost us $2,200 a month, and we're still falling behind in our assessments. The only way to run the DI program effectively for young children is for it to be in person. It is unfair to run a program that is so ineffective. You cannot successfully teach 5- and 6-year-old dominance of a foreign language via Zoom and expect them to meet state standards. We need our children to be in the classroom receiving instruction from a live teacher. Please do your part and apply for the waiver. The worst that could happen is we are rejected a waiver. If CDC and private schools can be in person safely, so can RBUSD. Please read this letter at your next board meeting. Sincerely, Tammy. Number 2. Dear RBUSD School Board and Dr. Keller, I received an email from Amy Small and Rebecca Goldstein regarding the pressures that are being put on the district to apply for the waiver. I'd like to strongly object to the district application for the waiver. The reopening of the schools should not be determined by a group of vocal parents, but rather the safety and well-being of our students, staff, family, and our community. I understand the closing of school campuses makes life very difficult, but the health and safety of everyone needs to be our primary concern. The cases of COVID are currently on the rise in Redondo Beach. In the month of September, Redondo Beach reported a total of 51 cases. This month we have already 75 cases, and this is with 7 days left for the month. National and local experts are predicting a large increase in cases as we go into November, December, and we've been previously seeing spikes in cases around holidays. Now is the wrong time to be asking to return to campus. Please take into consideration the health and safety of students, staff, families, and all residents in Redondo Beach, rather than demands of a few vocal parents. Thank you, Kristen Fredericks. Number 3, RBUSD board members. I am writing to express my support to apply for the K-2 waiver. I have a kindergarten and first grader at Burrell Elementary, and the waiver should be granted. I would send them back to school. They have been in the Burrell CDC program since August, so we've experienced firsthand that it's possible for these students to return in person safely. Both of my children have benefited immensely from the social interactions, which at this age is just as important as academics. Please, thank you, Annie Taylor. Number 4, Dr. Keller and RBUSD School Board. I was forwarded an email from a friend, originally from Amy Small and Rebecca Goldstein, in regards to the pressures that are being put on the school district to apply for the waiver. My family and I strongly object to the district applying for a waiver. I think it's incredibly dangerous and unprofessional to risk the lives of children, teachers, staff, and families based on a small group of parents being outspoken. Returning to school should be determined by a level of safety in the community. I'm sure you're all aware that the numbers are increasing around the country, including in Redondo. I've attached an article I saw tonight on CNN indicating there's a 14% increase in child COVID cases and close to 800,000 kids infected. Heading into the flu months, those numbers are predicted to go up. My family requests that you please take into account the health and safety of children, family, staff, and community members. This is far more important than applying for a waiver because some parents are being outspoken during this unsafe time. I did click through the link. It will be posted on the website itself. Some of the numbers within here are interpreted differently, but I would encourage people to read it, but we will post it. Number 5, public comment. Dear RBUSD School Board, we, the undersigned, strongly encourage the Redondo Beach Unified School District to vote in support of favor for any and all waivers for K through 2. We want to see the Redondo Beach Unified keep our commitment to our children when they say they committed their academic, social, emotional, and physical well-being. We believe that returning to school will foster intense emotional growth for our children, especially those in K through 2. We believe this can only be successful within some variation of in-person learning to support the personal and academic growth of our students. While we are all saddened that the county has allowed for schools to open in a non-equitable manner, focusing on income levels, however, we are supportive of any schools opening in our district, even if it means there will be some before others. We collectively ask that you continue to inform our community of your efforts to reopen schools and ask that you commit to town halls every other month to communicate an update of the reopening. Our community deserves to be informed of your efforts every step of the way. If you'd like any more information about the above, you can please contact Candace Nafisi. She put her email and phone number, which I won't read aloud. We can post it on the site. Thank you for your consideration. And this was signed by 36 parents, some husband and wife, some individuals, but there were 36 individuals' names listed on that. And again, will be published on the site, but too tedious to read through everyone's names right now. Public comment number 6, to whom it may concern. I want my kids back in school by the end of winter break. I get it, there are risks. Teachers deserve much higher salaries. They're the ones taking much of the risk. The virus is improving to be much worse than the flu. Make necessary adaptations to make everyone feel safe, but please let our kids learn with their friends. File for the damn waiver. We, the undersigned, strongly encourage the RBUSD to vote in favor to apply for all waivers for K through 2. We want to see Redondo Beach Unified keep their commitment to our children. When you have committed their academic, social, emotional growth, we believe that returning to school will foster immense social emotional growth for our kids, especially in K through 2. We collectively ask that you continue to inform our community of your efforts to reopen schools and commit to town halls every other month. Kind of a repeat of what I just read. This was from David Cartledge specifically. Public comment number 7. As you are now aware, a very concerned group of parent advocates have formed around our strong desire to return the children in our community to school. We are all agree the virtual model leaves a lot to be desired, and our kids are suffering emotionally, socially, and scholastically. We are well researched, and even based on our recent conversations with board members, understand the onerous and extreme measures LA County is asking our district to undertake in order to open schools. We know it will be hard, we know it will take work, but in the beginning, we have to start somewhere, and we believe as a community we will rally together in support of any progress in this area. Attached to this letter, the name of the parents in the Redondo Beach School District that support the below request. We are working quickly to get this list together, but if more support numbers are necessary, we are confident we can provide it. The following requests that we are making to the board at this time. Number 1, complete the waiver process to return our TK through 2 students to school. Again, our parents understand that certain schools within the district might get to return while others do not. We also understand that some schools might get to return faster than any other school within our district. We support this. We recognize that any of our schools returning to campus is a win, as it paves the way for more schools to open. It shows the county that we are meeting their requirement and will do whatever it takes to open our schools. Conversely, if certain applications for individual sites or school campuses are denied, it then highlights the need that we need to go work on as a board and as a community in order to get these sites ready. Number 2, permit 5 parents to join the Redondo Beach think tank. Of the current 27 members of the think tank, 0 are parents with no affiliation to the school board, administration, teachers union, or law enforcement. It seems only fair that a group of individuals formed with the intent on working on plans to reopen our schools would at least have some representation from the parent community without any other agendas due to their ties to administration and its business interests. There are stakeholders on that committee whose voices are used to represent local law enforcement, teachers, school board, health and safety, and the PTA. There are no members who are first, foremost, and only use their voice to represent the sentiment of our parents' community. Number 3, communicate your current plans and actions for fighting LA County on the onerous and inequitable process they have put in place to restrict schools from open. We know you are acting, we know you don't know how, as it's not communicated to us as a group. We want to help. We know this will take a giant Herculean effort that will most likely require people at all levels in this process to engage our city officials and request change. Use us, put us to work, tell us what we need to do, and we will get the word out. Signed, Amy Small and Rebecca Goldstein. I will tell you that I received this correspondence, district has it, but we received over 400 plus names signing in favor, both individuals and collective family separate line items. There are some duplicates in it, so that number might vary just slightly, but it's somewhere in the 400 range on there. Number 8, hello, please consider voting to approve the K-2 waiver for Borough Heights Elementary. We support 100% getting our kids back into school. Thank you, Kate and Billy Leva, first grade parents. Number 9, we are in favor of moving to in-person learning Thank you, Casey and Rosie Morale, Borough Heights, first grade. Number 10, hello. Writing in full support of a K through 2 waiver as a concerned parent of a first grader in the school district. Our children have been out of the classroom since March, and enough is enough. Our teachers have done a great job in the virtual environment, but nothing beats true in-person education, especially for younger students. Current COVID cases are down significantly, and we need to return with the proper safety precautions in place to allow our children to once again flourish and live or grow in a live classroom environment. Thank you for your consideration. Lauren Witter. Number 11, dear board members, I'm urging you to request the waiver for the well-being of our children. Every day they are not in school, they fall more and more behind. My first grader in dual immersion has not received the amount of Spanish immersion that was promised when we entered the program. If anything, he is receiving 1/5 of what he's supposed to be getting. In addition, my daughter is a 504 and needs extra help and attention from her teacher. It helps the teacher understand a child's needs when they are with them in person. Virtually, my children is exposed to a multitude of distractions and lacks one-on-one time that she would get in class. Zoom calls do not make it any easier on my kids in this situation. At this point, Redondo Beach has consistently had very low numbers of cases of the virus and should be allowed to re-enter school. Keeping them out of school is hurting our community more than it is helping. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and we appreciate all of your efforts in getting us back to school. Sincerely, Francesca Washington Perry. Final comment, dear RBUSD board members, I'd like to start off by thanking the teacher, staff, and administration of Redondo Beach School District. Let's see here. I think this is actually just a duplicate of one of the other letters before I read through it just real quick. Yes, it isn't? Okay, okay. My apologies. I will continue. I would like to, you're right, you handed this to me earlier. I'd like to thank the teacher, staff, and administration of Redondo Beach School District. I can't imagine how challenging it's been for all of us to learn an entirely new way of teaching, including the multiple online platforms and technological challenges and the minimal time to implement it all. And you are truly doing an amazing job. I have 2 children in the district, an 8th grade at Adams and a sophomore at RUHS, and both have teachers who are engaged in actively teaching the majority of live instruction time. Unfortunately, no amount of effort can replace the experience of physically attending school, both from an active learning perspective and equally as important from a social perspective. I have talked to so many Redondo students and parents, and we all seem to have a point where they lack motivation and emotional issues are becoming more prominent and more frequent. I can only imagine how difficult it's been for families with fewer resources and limited ability to support their kids during the day. In light of the recent tragedies at RUHS, I think we are all hypervigilant and greatly concerned about the long-term impact distance learning has on its children's mental health. As leaders for the district, I am seeking your input on how we as parents can support you and help move the needle to the hybrid learning model. I understand that many surrounding districts are applying for the waiver and starting to plan for what's a partial return and what school will look like. I realize there's a push to focus on the elementary schools initially, but it's equally as important or perhaps even more critical that our middle and high school age students are able to return to school and extracurricular activities in some form. So basically, I want to know how we as parents can help with the planning and implementation of the protocols for hybrid learning and or a return to sports or other clubs activities. You have a great resource at your disposal, motivated parents. Please let us know how we can use these skills to work with the district to get our children back in some form of in-person learning. Appreciate your time and consideration. Best regards, Julie Francis. I was just made aware we do not have any additional individuals downstairs. We will skip down now to communications. We will start with RBTA. And just a quick note for those watching online, we will be discussing this a little further down, so it's not that we are ignoring the letters, just going in the order of the agenda. So
14.1.
Yes.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Monica Joyce. I am the president of Redondo Beach Teachers Association. This past summer, before school started, RBTA signed a memorandum of understanding with the district, and that MOU was approved by you, the Board of Education. In the MOU, RBTA agreed to return to on-site instruction when it has been authorized by the state and county authorities, and you, the RBUSD Board of Education. You know, but some in the community may not be aware that our members have been working with students in person on campuses since August. Every time the LA County Department of Public Health deemed it safe for another group of students to return to in-person instruction, our members have answered the call. School psychologists returned for in-person assessments this past summer. Preschool teachers at Alta Vista bravely opened their classrooms on the first day of school. Special day class teachers have returned, speech therapists, nurses, learning center teachers, EL site specialists, athletic coaches, and most recently our secondary special education teachers have been working with students on site. As I have said previously, and as our agreement states, when the state and county officials deem it safe for our students and educators to return to campus, we will work in partnership to successfully execute the reopening plans we have in place. RBTA has never stated that we don't want to come back. We have come back, and we are teaching our students with tireless dedication. RBUSD is a unified district, and RBTA is an organization committed to equity. We do not believe that the current TK through 2 Grade 2 waiver process is in line with these values because it could create a situation where some elementary schools could reopen for in-person instruction and others won't be able to return. The way the waiver process is currently written would make it impossible for all 8 of our elementary schools to begin TK through for the TK through second grade in-person instruction at the same time. RBTA will support a safe, equitable return for in-person instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe CSEA or AFT is here. Does anyone on the board have something for PTA or RBF?
I do not.
Okay, hearing none, we will move on to consent. I'd like to pull 10.2. I believe we need to pull 10.1 as well. Is there anybody else that needs to pull something? Hearing none, can I get a motion and second to approve 10.3 to 10.5?
Moved.
Second.
All right, student advisory vote? Aye. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0. 10.1, can I get a motion and second, please?
So, second.
Thank you. Student advisory vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. All right, 10.2, motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I wanted to specifically just pull this to recognize RBEF's donation to the district for $969,500 so far. And I say so far because they do give us grants throughout the year, but it's a fairly appreciative and substantial donation and needed to be acknowledged. So
I was hoping they would be here with a big check, or at least leave a check for us like they usually do when they do this, so.
yeah.
I had a note saying, pull this unless they're here.
Okay. So yeah, I'm sure they will come in some future, but since we did receive the funds, we are proudly accepting it now. So. Student advisory vote. Aye. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. All right, moving on to action items. Motion and second for 12.1, award to lowest bidder for the Jefferson Elementary newest wall adventure.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes, we have gone out to bid for the repair of the Jefferson retaining wall, and we are asking the board to approve the lowest bid with CyberTech.
Any questions?
No.
I wish I could build these walls. These are just
Yeah.
unbelievably expensive. All right, student advisory vote? Aye. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hearing 5-0. Moving on to 12.2. Approve the revised job description for the executive assistant to the Board of Education and superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Wesley? Or- Thank you, Ricardo.
That's not part of the job description.
No.
Well, maybe we need to.
This is a revised job description of the executive assistant to the board and superintendent. We're recommending that you approve this revised job description, and the only key change is that the job description is also to the superintendent now, as opposed to just supporting the Board of Education. There's no change in salary.
Okay. I will skip you for this one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Moving on to 12.3, same idea, but approve the new job description for Executive Assistant Administrative Services, confidential.
Right, so this is a new job.
Thank-
Sorry.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead.
This is a new job description. Prior to this position, the job description was for an administrative assistant 4, and then it was changed to an executive assistant, but a job description wasn't created when that change was made. So at this time, we created a job description, and we plan to post this position tomorrow on EdJoin due to a retirement.
Sure. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hearing 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Wesley. All right, moment we've all been waiting for. Discussion on 14.1. Coming back to the waiver. Now, I think we'll address a couple of the misconceptions as best we can. Yeah, go.
And I have a presentation just to let you know. I've waited to put it here. Whenever you say go.
Okay, so I mean, just a couple quick things. Number one is, to echo Monica's statements earlier, the teacher union has been unequivocally that they want to come back. They're not. No one is stopping that. No one's communicating that. And I want every parent I've talked to in the last week, I've made that clear. So I want anyone listening. It's about equity. It's about all the schools opening together. It's not about there. We may be in a cycle or discussion point at some point for if the board gives direction or otherwise to proceed with the waiver, we might be in that position where we need to have that conversation, but it's just to make sure, because I've seen a lot of that this weekend and trying to correct that, so I want everybody to hear that. Number two, as far as it goes, the application process itself, it's not that we can't apply for all 8, it's just the equity basis that was at least in the waiver 2 weeks ago, which is why we pushed it down the road, if you will, was supposed to be for free and reduced lunch population. But as if those of us who've been following it, last week, 4 private schools were the first ones to get approved. And I say that not, I say it's like, I say it more as, I'm not entirely sure what the process is, meaning it keeps changing. We needed our stakeholders' approvals 2 weeks ago, all stakeholders. Now it's not required, it's just required that we have a discussion. There's a lot of, it's not a matter that the board, speak and anyone can correct me, but it's not that we didn't want to, it's not that we're not wanting to be back in class, it's just the hurdles 2 weeks ago were such that it didn't make sense at the time. It may make sense at this point. Dr. Keller's going to present and talk, and then we can all dialogue accordingly, but I just want to clear to the community, it's not that anybody's trying to stop this, it's a matter of just, the process that we all are going through, but there's a lot of misconception that we're just not doing it because there's no one stopping us other than the county keeps changing, so. Yeah.
And on that, one of the questions, David, that was brought up about applying, you don't have to keep on reapplying and reapplying. You apply once and you're in the queue. So once we have, or anyone has applied, their schools are permanently in the queue. The issue's always just been with the fact that the waiver process is changing, and I noticed that it's revised today.
Yeah,
the instructions were re-revised again, and that's what I'll let Stephen do his presentation before we get into the discussion of some of those things that I've been dealing with.
Yeah. I'm going to do a slow walk. I normally try to speak a little faster and respect people's time, but I think it's important to share context, because this has been a long road. This isn't something that has just come up necessarily. And so I'm going to leave this up while I kind of start the show, if you will. First of all, returning to campus is already happening per the guidelines from LA County Department of Public Health. Child development, CDC also known as, LIFT preschool, special education assessments, special education classes, at-risk learners, non-contact athletic conditioning, and other opportunities as we move forward, including English learner targeted instruction. Thus far, let me be clear, thus far, since June 11th, by the way, working closely with our 3 unions, since June 11th, we've reopened and brought back almost 1,000 students to some sort of on-campus, in-person experience. Those are real numbers. And yes, they do include athletics, which is about 350 people, and I won't go through all of them. But my point is, a lot of stinking work has gone on thus far to bring students back under the LA County Department of Public Health's guidelines. And we actually have used 3 different guidelines that LA County has provided us. So not just the school, but other that we could take advantage of. So we as a school district have been a model, a leader beyond just the South Bay, but LA County. People can do their due diligence. Fact check me all you want. We have about 1,000 students coming back to in-person experiences at our schools. Thank you to our community. Thank you to our families for trusting us. Thank you to our associations for working with us. And thank you to the Reopening Think Tank for providing us information that we bring to the board that the board ultimately yays or nays if we can move to the next level. And I want to thank the board for being assertive in that, because a lot of our students are benefiting from that already. So the TK2 waiver. I don't want to go there yet. I want to leave that up. So the TK2 waiver. First of all, a little more background. LA County Department of Public Health is only considering these grades. So I want to be clear. It's not like Redondo Beach Unified School District can arbitrarily say, well, let's go TK12. We're following LA County Department of Public Health. Currently, we are in, as a county, the state's metric, if you will, the purple tier. So we're in tier 1, purple, based on our infection rate. And we don't get to move those numbers around. That is a county number, and we follow the LA County Department of Public Health. Under tier 1, the purple, their language, not mine, it's considered a widespread infection rate per their metrics. And you can go online to determine how that is determined. Under tier 1, the purple category, if you will, schools cannot open. So if the county wanted to, let's say, do a countywide TK2 reopening, if you will, with no waiver, they are not allowed to under the California Department of Public Health's metric tiered system. And so originally, when the LA County Department of Public Health shared its information about the waiver, a couple weeks ago, their intent was to focus on schools specifically that had a higher percentage of free and reduced lunch counts. That was their original intent. They admit it. They were targeting that. And for districts like ours that don't necessarily have a high percentage, which I'll get to in a minute, that didn't exactly benefit us. And I remind everybody, parents especially, and I know our parents are savvy and know this, but I just want to remind people, we're under LA County. We see on the news Orange County, Riverside County, Ventura, San Diego, to some extent are going back at a different clip, if you will. And so we, of course, are in LA County. And so when we learned the information that this waiver was coming out, it didn't exactly appeal to many of us in communities like ours, because I remind you, our free and reduced lunch count is, and I'll share that a little bit later, is between 4 and 15% percentage of students receiving free or reduced lunches. So the target originally was by LA County really for a small group of schools that needed it the most. And so what they clearly saw right away is districts like ours complaining that we're going to be left out. And so on Thursday, I think it's fair to say, on Thursday the call changed. I'm on a weekly call with LA County Department of Public Health, as are all county school superintendents, and we received, a revision, if you will, and I'll get to that in just a second. I want to make sure I'm sticking to my notes. So we basically were told on this call that on Thursday, so this is a few days ago, that it appears we're going to be remaining in the purple category for a little bit longer based on the data. So for LA County Department of Public Health to open a, make a, what do we want to call it, a county-wide reopening of TK2, didn't look like it was something that was going to happen anytime soon. So this is how I interpret. Now this is a little bit of interpretation. How I interpret that next pivot by the LA County Department of Public Health is they realize we're probably going to be stuck in this purple a little bit longer. And so what can they do to push more schools in, if they felt it was safe to return, to apply for the waiver? And so one of the things they shared on Thursday is that they were going to modify the application process and make it easier to encourage other people to apply, because we were going to remain likely in the purple tier a little bit longer. But they realized there's plenty of schools that are ready to reopen, and so maybe opening that up a bit would be helpful. So I give them credit. It's a tough job, but I want to make it clear. It changed on Thursday. The process changed. Now, we were told that there was going to be a slightly different process to the waiver process, application process. And indeed, an hour and a half ago, we were told it would be changed, anywhere between Friday and Monday. It was changed an hour and a half ago, and I have the application. And it mirrors what basically we were told on the phone. And so I would share that it is an easier application, no doubt about it. And my only point to all of you will be, whatever this application is, it can change, and that's okay. And so what I would share with you is probably the most important piece is that we have come a long way in this process, in the way of reopening as a school district. The TK2 process, we would likely obviously not be on the high percentage of a school district, but I think it would put us in line to be considered down the road. And so what I want to do now that you've looked at the slide for a little bit longer, is share with you again and remind you that we share all this information, and everything I've shared with you, I've shared with Reopening Think Tank. And so what I wanted to do is show you now what I showed you at the last meeting with some revisions about the TK2 waiver. And so, again, between 4 and 15% is our elementary school free and reduced lunch count. This includes private and public schools. And of course, if you return, if you're selected, you would be expected to be in the hybrid model. The 4th district, we're in the 4th district for the LA County Board of Supervisors. This is Janice Hahn's district, and yes, it's vast geography, if you will, from Catalina to Playa del Rey or Marina del Rey, and all the way to Diamond Bar. Each supervisor grants 6 schools a waiver in grades TK through 2 per week. Reminder: we've all talked about this. We have 8 schools. We do not apply as a school district. We will fill out or complete individual applications for each school. That's just the way it is. The TK waiver approval process is essentially the LA County Department of Public Health confirms that you actually completed the application thoroughly. Board of Supervisors meets, considers the applications, then it has to go to the state, then it comes back to the county, and the county notifies you. And then the needed materials, I wrote this a few hours ago, and based on the application I read now, that's actually on the website, I think they mirror each other pretty well. So you confer with your labor unions, your labor partners. We have 3 of them, I remind people. We have our teachers, CSEA and AFT for our CDC folks. Confer with parents, and we'll get the clarity on that language, but confer is probably the best word to use. And then we complete the LA County Department of Public Health's reopening protocol checklist, and then we submit the waiver application. And so, in a nutshell, I think that's the process, but what I don't want to get lost in this process is the good work and the good collaboration we've done thus far. And so I think the information that Jessica Silberling shared earlier was very helpful to show you that indeed our schools are safe and ready for the continued return of students. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you're on those calls, I'm on the other calls. It's like this thing changes like literally every other day. But as I mentioned earlier, the confusing part of this whole process is, they tell you that the high free and reduced lunch, and then the first 4 came back as private schools. For whatever reason, it is what it is. But hot off the press as far as it goes, meaning this afternoon, Dr. Ferrer was speaking and had mentioned that In the last 2 months, more than 1,000 school sites have opened. Within there, they've had 2 outbreaks. Both have been immediately contained and indicated that there's a small number of cases overall within those pieces. I would almost use the word negligible, but ultimately was there. So it just is something to think about. One thing with the misconception is just, that we can only apply for 6 schools a week. We obviously can apply for everything, but they've only been granting it. However, as of today, they granted apparently 25 total schools to reopen. There wasn't a list so I don't know who or what they are, but that is as of about 2 hours ago. So
And that's over how many weeks?
that's over since they started the application process.
But by definition, is it greater than 4 weeks?
No.
2 weeks.
In theory, from the call last week, they said that they could have opened by this point 90 schools, and they'd only opened 4. So conceptually, there was an implication that we had the ability to, in essence, we were building a bank where theoretically next week they could come out and say, here's 90 schools and go. That was the implication, although I went to ask the question. I went to ask a question and didn't get selected to clarify that amongst a couple other things. So there seems to be movement in that process that they want to start looking at it. But
does that mean that they've already gone over the 6 per week?
They have not.
no, because they give you a total of 30 per week, 6 per district.
They had 4 the first week
So like
and
Janice Hahn-
20-something this
yeah.
week.
Janice Hahn gets
6
6 per
county
district.
district.
Per district,
Right.
yes.
So Janice Hahn from Diamond Bar to wherever,
So
Stephen.
Janice Hahn can select 6.
Well, I don't think she selects, I think it's just in her district. I don't think she individually, I think the Department of Health makes that decision.
Oh,
But
all
within
right.
whatever Janice Hahn's district is, only 6 schools get granted that week.
Okay, all right.
Theoretically, we as a district could get 6 one week and 2 the following week in concept. The reality is it's unlikely. I think they're going to give our district priority over anybody else, meaning it's.
So it's entirely possible if we submitted applications for all of our 8 schools, 1 would get approved.
Correct.
And the rest would still be waiting.
And there's also a chance all 8 could get approved, but we don't know because they never answered
Yep.
the question about the backlog.
Right.
And one hint, Brad.
No, 8 would not get approved.
No, they-
The limit's 6.
Based on the backlog, because in theory they have 90, they should be at 90. The concept was they gave the impression like they were going to maybe push out farther to fill up that 90. So theoretically, each district can now get, 15 schools in 1 week.
Oh, so they would bump up the 6 number?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, only to fill that void, because in theory, they were supposed to do 6 a week, but they didn't do 6 a week for the first couple weeks.
They did 0, then 4, then 20-something.
All right,
Right.
okay.
And as a hint, if you want to ask a question, or if you think you want to ask a question.
You have to do it right at the beginning.
The very beginning, and
Yeah.
you'll be the first person.
No. I did it like 5 minutes in, and by then it was already, I sat through all the questions, and after 30 minutes, they're like, sorry, you're done, goodbye. Me personally, I think, we're kind of, 2 weeks ago, we were in a different position than we are now, and something that we should potentially consider as far as the application process. A terrible analogy, but basically, I'll pick on Soup Plantation, they're not all over their own, but you walk into Soup Plantation and they tell you, you only have soup this week, we don't have salad. And, and then you wanted salad, but you come back the following week and now you have both. My terrible analogy is I think as a district, we should consider the prospect of applying for the waiver with the understanding is we don't have to make any firm commitments. What I mean by that is, I believe we are a unified district. We should be looking at I'll say 8 or none, but, I don't want to back us into a corner right now because this thing's moving every day. So my thought process is that we should, as a district, consider the opportunity to apply and see what happens. If we get 1 approved, we as a board can stand by our original position of we're only going to open when we get all 8. We may get all 8. We just don't know. And so in light of what we were at 2 weeks ago, looking at this in light of where we're at now, and the reason we meet every few weeks is because things change. But, I'm throwing the concept of throwing out the idea of seeing what the appetite is for the board to potentially give direction to staff to do so.
And if I may say two things real fast, sorry, pardon me, because I made a little, I wasn't click happy enough. Two things. One is, according to Dr. Ferrer, the sector that is the most compliant and most impressive thus far are schools. And so that was another reason for the softening of the waiver process. So she really wanted to emphasize that's kind of one of the reasons why she wanted to open the door more so than previously. And I also wanted Dr. Alpern just to briefly share, the domino effect of any kids coming back on campus, because this will impact CDC. So we just have one slide we wanted to share with you regarding our Child Development Center.
Hey there.
Hello.
As you know, all right. As you know, we've had students in our CDC program since June. We're currently serving 450 students in grades TK through 5. And obviously a return of more students to in-person instruction will have an impact on the program that we can offer through the CDC program. So we've spent quite a bit of time, as Dr. Keller has said, in the planning and discussion phases around returning more students to in-person instruction. We took the notion that returning students like at a TK2, we made an assumption. If we had students returning at the TK through 2 grade span, what would that look like? Well, we would continue to offer our full day option 5 days a week to our students in grades 3 through 5 that have been participating. We would look at the students who are currently enrolled in TK through 2, actually it says TK through 5, but it's really TK through 2, students the option to continue with full day, 5 days a week, or have those students that are enrolled in TK through 2, that are enrolled 5 days a week, that they would then choose to be enrolled in the CDC program on the days that they're not in person in front of their elementary classroom teacher. And obviously we would need to get commitments from those families, and then as a result, then we would determine space availability to expand care for other students that we're not currently serving in the CDC program. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer questions if not.
Well, and Dr. Alpern, while you're up here, let me throw out a couple questions. One will be to Dr. Keller, and the other probably will end up in your lap. First is, part of the process involves conferring with the key stakeholders, particularly the labor organizations, and then also parents. And we got earlier in the meeting, Dr. Wiles talked about the survey, so we have some information there. The second question is could you explain to those who might be listening what a return for TK through 2 means? I want to be sure parents who might be listening would understand that's not a return to 5 days a week all day long.
Correct.
It is a return to the hybrid model,
Right.
which doesn't mean that you're in school every day. So if we could get some clarification on those 2 points, please.
Right. Okay. So I'm happy to share that. A return to hybrid instruction, which was the model that we developed over the summer and that we negotiated and worked with our labor partners to determine for an elementary primary grade student would look like a return to in-person instruction either 2 days a week or 3 days a week, depending on the week. So if you're in one cohort, you would be coming to school on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday one week, and then a Wednesday, Friday the next week.
Or you would be in school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday 1 week, and then Tuesday, Thursday the following week. The bell schedule would not change. The schedule that students are currently experiencing now would be the same in the hybrid model. So the instructional blocks and the instructional time would not change. But the time that they're physically in person in front of teachers would change.
All right, and then Dr. Keller, talk about confer, what confer means.
Yeah, it's something I'm gonna have to clarify, because we just received the document, but I think in a lot of ways, we've conferred a lot. And I would say, as an example, let me give an example. We have the president of PTA on our reopening think tank. So I attended the PTA meeting on Friday to express to them that the board was going to consider this. And so they were having a post-meeting to discuss it within themselves. We also have, sticking with the parent piece, we have a parent survey that is clearly overwhelmingly in support of students returning. And so my understanding, and as just one example, that would be the component that they'd want to see, that you've had the conversations. This wouldn't be a blindsided experience, a gotcha, oh, by the way, kids are coming back, that everybody is aware that this is an application that the district is submitting on behalf of each school in the district. And so I would just follow the same format in conferring with our labor partners, if we need to as well, Beach City's Health District, because they are involved in our school district. And, based on what I'm hearing, we certainly have had a lot of these conversations over the last short while.
All right, and I would be particularly interested in what our labor partners are thinking about this, through whatever appropriate channels or lines of communication, whether that's through the think tank discussions that I've, got the pleasure of being able to be part of, and then anything else you could give us on that would be appreciated.
I'd like to bring up the issue of what can we control and what can we not control. What we can control is whether we apply or not, for how many schools we apply, and what the applications look like. We can't control what the Board of Supervisors does with those applications. But if it's within our control to submit 8 applications, and our parent population is overwhelmingly in favor of kids returning to school, to me, like, it weighs in favor of submitting the applications, because the term equity, we're not, whether one school or 2 gets opened and 6 or 7 don't, that is not in our hands. It won't be us, like, creating an inequity. And so I think, like, we have to weigh there are 2 negatives. Like, one, do we want to be quote unquote inequitable? Or is it even worse to not even apply because we're afraid of a perception of inequity? And look, I'm kind of fleshing out the arguments in my own mind as I speak, but if it's out of our, we can only do what we can control. And to sit here and have our parents be in favor of returning, to see my own kid who's in 1st grade struggling academically and socially, like, it would not feel right to have it be within our control to submit a waiver application and to not do it. Again, that's just my thinking out loud, but that's kind of what I would put on the table, given the facts that you stated about the process.
Can I say?
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate you saying what we can and can't control piece, because, you know, having been a part of the think tank from the beginning, and this work and progress that we've made has always been about getting us back to school with health and safety at the forefront. And we have followed these rules. These are not guidelines that we can pick and choose. These rules of smaller cohorts. We can't just open classes outside and somehow that will allow us to open more schools. These are the rules that they've laid for us. 2 weeks ago, the rules were one. How they played out in reality is not the original set of rules. So they've sort of switched that rules. And then as far as what we control and what we don't control, if we say all 8 schools are applying and we get behind, we want all 8 schools approved at whatever process that we need to state, even if they don't give us all 8, does it then become this board's decision as to, are we going to just open one school, or can we just wait until we have all our 8 schools? You know, I mean, once it gets to the school board, we should determine with all stakeholders, it's not like tomorrow we're going to open our schools. Okay, it's done, you know, we're ready. But it's also, you know, that would come back into our control. Couldn't we make the equity decision after we applied? Does that make any sense? So that we're just, you know, we could always make it clear, our intent from the beginning is that we want all schools following, again, safely. To answer, it is important, we are following this health and safety guidelines. There is no circumventing the health and safety guidelines here. And if this is what's offered to us, can we at least try to get our power back by applying?
Yeah. My reading of
And
it is that
if it's-
they are approving you to open. They don't say you have to open on this date.
Right,
Correct.
then it becomes,
Well, and if we are worried about a perception of inequity, if we're able to make public the waiver application, if we can show people that all 8 applications are identical, and really, you know, we have lotteries in this school district to see who can get into, you know, a certain school of choice, right? Now we're kind of the applicants in a lottery, which is, you know, it's not, so there will be inequity. Like we will win, or a school will win the lottery, or a couple schools will win the lottery, other schools will lose. It doesn't mean we're being inequitable. We can level the playing field as much as possible by making the applications identical. And showing the parent community that.
well, they can only be identical by filling out the information. And we will have different free and reduced lunch populations per school site.
Yeah.
And that will be completely transparent. If you look on the website now, I didn't realize they had approved any others, but the original 4, the applications will be posted. And it states exactly, you know, what the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 2 things. One is, you know, from a standpoint of where we're at, I think if the board decides to give direction in any manner to staff as far as it goes, I don't think we have to solve all the problems today. I think for me, the biggest, my terrible analogy earlier, but basically, I want to go to a restaurant and have a choice. We don't have that choice right now. Our choice is simply, you go in and this is what we're serving, versus I can take this or I can take this, or we can choose to do neither. And so I think if we put I mean, 2 weeks ago, we looked at this and objectively said, there's just no way we can achieve the hurdle that they put in front of us, and that's why we kicked it down. That's my perception of it. But it has changed. And, you know, Monica's sitting there, I don't want to misstate you. To answer to Mike, I don't think you object to the process of filing for the application. You just want equity in the sense that your support is to open all 8 schools or get the approval for 8 schools to do so. Am I stating that correctly? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it's a matter of just how I started off was basically is like, look, I don't believe that we as a board should start making definitive decisions on things other than open the door. Let's open the door, figure out what that looks like, because the opportunity is there now where it wasn't 2 weeks ago, or at least we have the opportunity to open that door wider than we did 2 weeks ago. If we go to that process of application and only one school comes in, we as a board can collectively say that's not what we want to do, or we can elect to go forward, but I don't think that decision has to be made today. The reality is, none of our schools may get approved because of whatever may change. God forbid the numbers go up significantly, and they withdraw the process. They may come back and our numbers go down and go, you know what, we really want all kids back in school, and every TK through 2 can go. So I think we spend a lot of time on hypotheticals, but I think, the data says, to me, that we now have the opportunity to look at putting in the application without making any further commitments beyond, we fill out those eight documents, we send in the required stuff. The think tank, the staff, everyone's done everything that we needed to do to open up back in July. We were ready to go until we were told we weren't ready to go. So that would be my thought process is, let's just apply. Make no further commitments beyond that, and then let's see how this process plays out. And we'll all work whatever we have, whatever connections we have to try to get this so that all of our schools can open. But we'll see what it looks like. There's no promises in anything other than the concept of just at least get the paperwork turned in and let's figure it out from there. That's my personal thought, but, I'm open to suggestions. I'm open, and that's not I, but, we have to collectively decide what we want to do, so.
I think that's very logical.
Well, and for what it's worth, and again, I would like to, hear what our labor partners say. And, Monica, I appreciate that, and I think I understood where you stand on that. One advantage we have towards that desire to have all 8 elementaries in is, unlike a lot of districts that are applying, our record-keeping demographic by the LA County Department of Public Health is identical to our school district's alignment. So if you look, as I've watched over the weeks and months, the stats that LA County Department of Public Health keeps, and if you look at their website, they cut it about 5 or 6 different ways. It's all aligned with the city of Redondo Beach, which is identical to our district. So if we presented them with a package that said we want all 8, I would think, putting myself in their shoes, they have a much easier way of comparing their own records with what we are asking. So we're in alignment with their record keeping, which I would think would put us ahead of some others that the Department of Health, County Public Health would have to do a lot of research to try to figure out what is our performance as far as our numbers. And also, when you compare us to the county, we are in this band of higher performing units as far as COVID goes. So I think there is I would think, something in support of this premise that we need all 8.
Brad?
Sure. Over the last couple of weeks, as the legislative rep for our district, I've been trying to work this as much as possible. I've talked to state people, I've talked to a number of county people. In fact, today I talked to Janice Hahn's health person, Mark Backham. He's a Lincoln parent, so he's in the district. So he is at least familiar with the district, what's going on, our schools. But I made them aware a couple of weeks ago about the big issue about the letters of support. And, we are not going to get a letter of support from the PTA. They've been instructed not to sign any letters because it's a liability issue. So we have the parent survey, so that's good. We can use that parent survey. But PTA leaders have been instructed not to sign anything on stating anything about that because of liability issues. The new process is, one interesting addition is a letter from the superintendent, which is a nice addition. That's something that you can now do and talk about what we've been talking about today, about saying how, we would like our schools to be approved together in a group. It's possible maybe we get 4 1 week, 4 the next week. You might be, if they can't get all 8. But their wording is that letters of support are recommended but not required. If a letter of support or description, if letters of support or a description of the consultation process is missing for any of the groups listed below, they won't consider it. They'll just be incomplete and you'll be weighted. So what that basically means is we need to describe the consultation process. We could get letters of support if our labor partners are, willing to sign on. I think it'd be great to get those letters of support from the labor partners, but from the parent survey is probably going to have to be what we need there.
Yeah, and like I said, as I shared, I'd probably just add, based on the information I've read, that I did consult on Friday at 9 a.m. and met with PTA and shared that this was a discussion that was going to the board on Tuesday. And then I'd follow up with Kimberly and share, so she could share with others. So I wouldn't be receiving anything in writing from PTA.
Yeah.
And then attach the survey information.
But a letter of
We
support.
do have 400 plus
Yeah.
parents right here.
Right.
Right, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We
We've got-
could have like dozens of.
We have our
letters of
survey
support.
where it says 85% of the parents wanted to do it. And
Yeah,
Right.
I think we'd get
by
no
the
shortage.
answer they gave at last week's phone call, they implied that a parent survey would be sufficient.
Correct.
There.
Okay.
They didn't imply anything about a labor partner survey or anything like that, though. So that's why we really need to have, good conversations with our labor partners and have something. I would really strongly suggest a letter of support that supports what we want to do and how we want to open from the labor partners, just because the impression that I have seen from other districts is that the county could be looking for reasons to say no as opposed to reasons to say yes. So the more that we can do that supports what they're asking for by the letter as opposed to by the spirit, also, I think, is a big advantage of what we can do.
Well, a question, would not the executed MOU with our labor partners be a pretty strong piece of evidence that we have labor support for the hybrid model? And I think that would be a little unique among relationships between districts and their labor partners right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, but the same thing goes as and that's why I asked Monica earlier, and again, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, it's more just conversation. It's
Right.
just, if we're all in agreement in concept that, it's basically an 8 or none, meaning I'll say from a labor perspective, and obviously we still have AFT and CSEA to have that conversation with, but I think ultimately we put our best foot forward, whatever that's gonna look like, if that's the direction the board wants to go. And, we got a lot of work to do regardless as far as just in this, getting into the next phase of this process. So it's not, and that was one thing I thought about, which I wanted to clarify, which is, I think even a teacher that came up earlier alluded to it. There is no way, I ran into a couple teachers this weekend, there is no way we're gonna open the minute we get an application. Even if they said we had 8, I wanna be abundantly clear to everybody. We will make sure that everyone's ready. If it takes 2 or 3.
Parents as well.
Yeah.
There was yes.
There's no way that we would tell parents, hey, guys, it's
Next
Friday
week."
afternoon, bring your kid to school on Monday, have a good weekend. There's no way, this district is way too methodical on that type of thing. So, it's gonna take a few weeks under the best-case scenario, even if we got the approval tomorrow, because it's just, there's too many kids, there's too many logistics, there's too many things, and we wanna do it right the first time. If we screw it up along the way, massively, it ruins credibility and just doesn't make any sense, but I think ultimately, this is just me, I think we still have work to do with it, but I think, at least minimally, I think I would like to conceptually direct staff to at least begin the process, meaning get the applications finished, put our best foot forward with it, respectful of everybody that's involved with this process, but give direction to staff to get the applications going, and whatever level that they can talk with RBTA, with CSEA, with AFT, and whatever, the best foot we can put forward, we can put within there that we are committed to, as a district, opening all 8, and we are ready, and here's examples from CDC to kindergarten to SDC and what have you, someone might look at it and might take that under consideration, or maybe, I think Brad said it'll be 4 and 4, whatever it is.
But isn't it risky to put in there like the ultimatum, we want 8 or none?
Well,
Why can't we just say we respectfully request?
Yeah, I don't think you put it as an
Approval.
ultimatum.
No.
Yeah.
You say,
Like,
you know,
because
We
like
would
there-
prefer to open
We're
as a
asking-
unified district.
Unified school district.
We would prefer that, but I don't want to run the risk of having no schools open because
No, yeah.
they think,
I don't,
they
yeah,
think like we literally are.
yeah.
Yeah, in my
Okay.
discussions with the county, with Mark today, I talked to him a little bit about that, about the fact that, we want all 8 to open at the same time. But if they gave us an approval and said, hey, we'll give you an approval and it'll be, 2 a week for the next 4 weeks, or four and then 4, or something, at least if they gave us a plan, that could work. Because if they tell us, if we could go to our unions and say, well, it's gonna be over the next 2 weeks, but everybody's opening. We have something to talk about, but, he wanted to know how many students we had back, what we had on campus. So I was luckily, that same chart that you've got there, you give that to us in our updates. And so I read to him, and I said, well, on June 11th, we had this many CDC students back, which is now up to this. And I went through the whole list so he could understand. We've got hundreds of students back on campus. We've been through this. We know what we're doing. We're prepared. And, we understand that Dr. Ferrer is conservative and wants to ramp up slowly and look at the results. But, if you're doing 6 schools a week or 30 schools a week, and then we hit tier 2, you don't want to have that step function either. So I'm trying to make him that argument that, that 30 a week maybe should go to 60 a week, should maybe go to 100 a week as time goes on, so that they get that data and they don't have a big step function. So I've been trying to make some of those arguments so that perhaps the county supervisors will get to 60 or 100 a week, in which case 8 in a district is easy.
And let's just go back to what we can control, which is the application, and I have no idea what the application looks like. But we should, I think we should apply, or instruct staff to apply for all 8 schools. Provide letters of support. Not say we want all 8 or none, because that would make the risk too high that we get none. And then
Go for it.
go for
Well,
it.
I can't see it'd be a problem with, somewhere in the preamble, and again, with this alignment of the county health, Department of Public Health's reporting jurisdictions with our district boundaries. It's our intent to, and desire to open all 8 at the same time, and here are the 8 applications.
Yeah.
And,
That's what the
you know,
superintendent
and again,
letter
and
can
just
be
to
used for.
reiterate,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that alignment with our labor partners, before I fully support it, but I would think that we could move down that path and see if we can get there.
Well, my only comment to you, Mike, in the sense of expediency is, if we're going to give direction to staff to do so, can staff work with you on the pieces versus waiting 2 more weeks to then have some kind of more formal process? Meaning, because it's one of those things that if we're going to give direction to staff to move forward, in concept, it doesn't have to be unified, but I think we all should be unified in that agreement. That would be my only request from you, is to is getting beyond that piece. Obviously, I don't believe staff will just go and just haphazardly just put through. This is going to be some process within there. But, and I will say, and us, Brad heard the same thing, but, if they do have a bank of schools, we might have that opportunity. So I think time is of the essence to get it in. Whether it amounts to it, at least we've put the wheel in motion, and and then we as a collective board will decide when and if we receive approvals, if we're going to open as a whole or open as parts, or we're going to figure out how we're going to do the pieces. That's my only piece of it, is just I don't want to leave here, if we're giving direction to staff for it to be ambiguous, that we have to wait 2 more weeks.
Right. Well, and, my support's conditioned on that, but I think that's the process anyway. If I understand the process, we can't submit the application unless we have if we have conferred with and have the support of.
We can confer, we no longer
doesn't-
need to support it. And I'm not
Well-
saying that we're being disrespectful of it, but that has changed. We can, in concept, we could
It says,
say we're doing it, and that's all we have to do. The conference is strictly notifying, and again, I'm not being,
it says describing the consultation process.
right.
It doesn't say describing the consultation results.
All right. Well,
That
except,
said-
let's be smart about this, so, if it goes to the Board of Supervisors and it's not, and we don't have something pretty strong in that area, the chances of it, of getting approved by the Board of Supervisors is much reduced.
Right, but it's
I
the
think we have a
Department of
much
Health, though.
stronger case if we go on saying, yeah, we've conferred, we have support of, and we're going forward, so.
Okay.
And I don't know, is there an action in this board meeting? Because I know this is a discussion piece in our agenda.
We can
No.
we can give direction, we don't have to vote on it, we can give direction, I mean, and conceptually, and again, I mean, three of us could say, this is what we want to do, and in concept, that's a majority, but yeah, we did not make it an action item specifically, we can give direction, or we can punt if we wish.
And I personally would like to see staff at least start the process. I don't think they need us to actually approve the fact that they apply for a waiver. I think we need to approve the school opening if it gets approved, but I don't think we
That's
need
correct.
to approve staff completing a two-page waiver and doing all that to stations and everything else.
And I would echo separately to it, I think our staff is more than competent to figure out the process that they need to navigate to properly submit this. So, rather than us as a board get into the minutia of all the pieces of it, I would rather give direction to staff in concept to move forward. And then, as we all do, we confer with Dr. Keller and others, offline, not together, but as, if we give as a board direction to do so, then you can talk to Dr. Keller or whatever if you have certain things you want to see within there, and they can, but I will give our staff latitude to make that decision.
Yeah. Well, without putting Monica too much on the spot, but putting her on the spot, are you okay with what you're hearing so far?
I'm one person, obviously for the, executive board of RBTA and RBTA of council, but I would have to go back to them at this point. It's a big deal.
All right. Well, I'd say, let's start the process. Let's get those applications together. And even if the staff is feeling good about having that level of meet and confer with all of the labor partners, and, we talked about the parent side, and it goes in, my feeling again is I would like to start all 8 of them. I think there's a huge equity issue if we don't start all 8 at the same time. Whether we, as Brad Waller indicated, we get 2 approved and 2 approved and then 2 more, or we get 4 and 4, or we get, 6 and 2 or something, that's immaterial. How we get to that point. But if we were to be able to get all 8 at some point queued up and ready to go, and all of our labor partners are ready to go with us, then I'm all in.
Yeah, and I would just, the final statement I would say on it is, giving direction to staff, if that's what we all are agreeing to today, doesn't mean anything more than we're filing the application. If we as the board take the power back, like Reimer said, where we have the ability to say no, even if we get the approval, if we decide it's not where we need to be. So I would just say ultimately, it's like, this is more direction, this is not a rubber stamp for us to say we're opening schools, because obviously the county has to vote on it, they have to send it back to us, we as a board have to then take it up as an action item and figure out how we're gonna do that, and there are many steps in that process, so, this I just think is a huge step to at least having options to talk about. It doesn't mean we have to do it, and we may be talking to ourselves, because they may not give us the waiver process for a good long time, so, but we don't know if we don't try. So,
I think we have a potentially really strong set of applications,
great.
but the more we're together with all of our stakeholders, and the stronger that application will be.
Yeah. Okay, so if I've heard correctly from everybody, the direction is for us to submit all 8 applications. And if everyone's is okay with what I said earlier, is giving the latitude to staff to put together the best foot forward we can. I'm not, we can't take a vote on it. I'm not asking for a vote, but I just want to make sure I'm conveying a unified message.
Can I request that we see the applications
Yeah.
before, or your letter before it goes in?
You're a mind reader. What I was going to suggest is it's going to take, a couple days to get this going. Put a draft in your Friday update, and if all looks clear, we submit sometime next week. If that timeline meets your standards, we can make that happen.
Yes. Yes.
Are we planning any communication with parents? I understand the unified piece is important, but are we just planning to use the survey that we have as our conference with parents? And you can let us know later. You have to probably think on that, but.
I would just say to you, the confer gives us latitude. And
Okay.
so, and I'm not saying that recklessly. We're going to communicate. We want support. I think we're all in agreement with you, Mike. Stakeholder support, whether it's Beach City South District, our parents, and our labor partners. We want their support. If there is, some concerns, we're going to listen, and we've certainly been listening to them. But I feel as if we have a lot of pieces already, and I'll just, part of my piece, obviously Ed Services will be helping me with this. Dr. Wilds, thank you for listening. I know, she is.
You can come inside.
And, but in the way of the process, I'll be working with Dr. Wesley to work with our labor partners, and I'll be reaching out to Beach City South District, and I'll be reaching out to Kimberly, and just kind of looping back. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's being discussed that hasn't already at least landed on somebody's radar. So I feel good that, a lot of this communication has taken place thus far.
Yeah, and I will give a statement on behalf of the board. I think for most of us have been here almost years, Ramiro, Mike and Brad and I have been here almost 7.5 years. I think we've earned enough, at least that our labor partners know we're not going to just do something haphazardly. And so my overall point is just, we don't take any of this stuff flippantly. We're not just doing this we're not going to just unilaterally do it and just say to heck with everything else. We know that we know, because RBTA is here, we know you guys work hard. We know you do it. It's why I said at the beginning, I want the messaging clear on everything. And so likewise, we begin the process, we continue the conversation, and at least we have the opportunity to look back at it, and review it. And, as Raymer said earlier, which is it takes a little bit of power back to this district that we haven't had for many months now, to at least then arbitrarily make decisions once the county, if they grant us a waiver, then we have the power to then dictate how we're going to do this. So.
Well, and I think everyone here appreciates this notion of it being a lottery is so problematic to me, just sort of in general, but that lottery is going to be based on health and safety. It's not a lottery based on, there are health guidelines that are there. I don't want it to be seen as whoever gets their application in first or has this. The process, I would love to talk to Janice Hahn's office and anyone else's, because
They describe
collaboratively,
they more of
the logic
list,
behind
and,
this.
If you submitted on the first day and you're here, and people keep on getting above you, you're stuck at the bottom, is kind of how it was described.
Yeah, just to loop back, I think it's appropriate, as news travels fast, that communication goes out tomorrow from me that we are seeking this process. And so I think that's really important to share with staff and parents. So I will share a draft with you tomorrow morning of what would be sent out, but I just think communicating to our public is very important.
Yeah, I know there's lots of parents watching tonight, so message will start getting out. But I think as a district, the sooner we get it out, the better.
And in the spirit of the think tank, maybe there can be a dialogue on think tank. I may not be at the whole think tank on Thursday, but we can hear, and then Monica, maybe you can get some more feedback and feed that back through that process, and then we can all see where things are stacking up as we move along and get ready to submit.
Well, thank you all for the time and discussion on it, so. Okay. 14.2, discussing as far as first reads. Any comments or any questions as far as items to pull or revise?
Actually, I did. AR 5145.3, which is page 154. All the others on that equivalent page, it's got the title, address, phone number for the person responsible, and that one didn't have it listed. It was blank, and I'm assuming that's just a quick oversight, or maybe it's not needed for that one, I don't know.
One more time, AR?
5145.3, which was page 154.
Excellent, thank you.
It's-
I'll follow.
That's a non-discrimination.
I don't remember, I
think
didn't
it
write
is,
down
yeah.
which one it was, it was
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I'll follow up.
Just for those that are at home, these are board policies that the board approves and reads, and if you are ever interested in the policies, they're accessible on the RBUSD website. You can go and see very important policies that we're just not talking about one by one.
Yeah, they're attached to today's agenda as well, so.
Mhm.
But they'll be voted on at the next meeting, so.
non-discrimination harassment.
Okay, so, moving on to correspondence. Any correspondence outside of the parent communication this weekend that anyone wishes to share? Hearing none, we will go to board member reports. Mr. Whitkin.
None for me.
Mr. Waller.
I finally got the chance to be on a campus, even saw students on a campus, which is really exciting. We went to Paris yesterday, saw the one student on campus, and then got to go see a classroom where they got to play a prank on us by having all the kids frozen on Zoom when we came in.
Oh, that's great.
And then today, Washington, where we got to see actually a decent number of teachers and some students there. And then, as I said, I've been talking with Al Maritsucci's office, or Al Maritsucci himself, Ben Allen, and Janice Hahn's office. I did speak to Al for a while about SoCal Rock as well. We can, I have a question for you afterwards. Some questions that he had that I wasn't able to answer. But, I know that he's been trying to set up a meeting with the superintendents.
I believe I got some text, I think we're scheduling something.
Okay, so, he's still talking about it, working for it, but he's also realistic about what's going on. But he had questions about how, what our philosophy is and what we like at Redondo and what what I'm hearing, but mostly it was, I had to say, well, Mike's there now. But since I was on the phone with him, he brought that up. It was like, hey, I got a 15-minute call. Can I talk to you about something? And it ended up being an hour. And at least a half an hour was asking me questions about SoCal Rock and my thoughts. And I gave him some ideas as well. Nothing that I haven't shared previously. That's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen.
It is so neat to do these site visits. Get another one. We'll be with you on Friday. Got a chance to go to Lincoln the other day and see everything in action there. Again, the teachers are my heroes, and what they're doing is amazing in these virtual classrooms. Huge, big shout out and thank you to Dr. Keller and to the entire IT team. These extra monitors are a game changer. And the fact that, we have spread them out, and if we have not gotten enough of them out, then you certainly have my support to get a few more, because they really have made a difference.
And I just want to give you all credit, because you're ultimately the people that approve it, so thank you.
Yeah, and it's more than just that monitor. Our teachers have a computer, a tablet, 2 monitors.
Crazy.
So they're using everything.
Yeah, and every one of those teachers has a whole little domain set up in front of those classrooms that is working, and it is a lot of work. Work is the operative word here, but it's working. And as Brad had mentioned, and Dr. Keller had in the last Friday update, some interesting information on SoCal Rock. I'm sure there'll be more coming I'll be glad to chat with you, Brad, about that, and some hopefully breakthroughs that we've had with the Torrance Unified School District in a meeting we had, a SCROC meeting we had a week ago. And I think we maybe had some breakthroughs, particularly given that the public members attending that meeting included Betty Lou and others. So I think some things might be happening at the TUSD board level. And we could probably pass some stuff on to Assemblyman Marisucci on that. Other than that, that's all I got. Go Dodgers.
Ms. Flynn?
I too appreciate the site visits and the tremendous work our teachers and administrators and our students are doing to try and make this work, this terrible situation. And I hope as we move forward, we remain united in doing what's best for our kids and making sure that for all of our kids, which we have done up to this point. And I hope we try to keep, it's frustrating, I know, but to keep it that we're all on the same team, working toward providing the best education we can, bringing kids back safely, making sure that our teachers and staff are safe. It is a heavy lift, and I appreciate the parents reaching out and giving their feedback, and also offering their support to help make that be possible.
So, well, I echo. I mean, I've had the opportunity to be on a couple more campuses, which is great, and all the parents I talked to this week and weekend, really, everybody wants what's best for their kids, including us. And I think that's the message everybody needs to know. And, it extenuates to all of our staff, including the teachers. I mean, I watched my 9th grader going through online school, and as I said 2 weeks ago, he definitely enjoys his 7-step commute to school, but it's none of us on this board want nothing more than our campus is back open again. And so, to that extent that we can, but, I will say to parents what I've said on the phone and otherwise is we don't make decisions lightly. We don't just flippantly say, we're not going to apply or we're not going to do this. I mean, we all come in here prepared. A lot of the things that we approve right away, it's because we've already prepared, we've already read through the documents, we've already done a lot of work behind the scenes. And so just know that, our commitment is to the community at large. On a side note, we lost a child from 9th grade last week, and, it's, the collateral damage of what's going on in this world is unfortunately taken hold in this aspect. But our thoughts and prayers are with the family, and please make sure your kids are well taken care of. So if you need any help, please reach out. So future agenda items. Is there anything that anyone else has for the future? Hearing none, calendar of events, November 10th, we will be back here again, 4 o'clock, open session. We are off the following day on Wednesday for Veterans Day. Thanksgiving break is November 23rd to 27th. I know staff and everyone is looking forward to a breather. December 8th is our last board meeting of 2020, and we welcome winter break and dismiss 2020 and move on to a better year. So, all right, motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Student advisory vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.